Welcome back to what has been a very brutal killer for us today for day one of the Anglo Caledonian Rally. Only 2 stages in, and already this complex of stages has lived up to its name. I'm Paul Woodford. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry about the technical issues we had earlier. The driving rain, the snow and everything else conspired against us, and then the Starlink had a global dropout with all the units failing on us and dropping out concurrently, which was very frustrating. But we are back and we've got some atmosphere for you. The spot lamps are bolted on, and the first of the 4-wheel drive cars, which you may remember from earlier, the organisers switched the running order around, are running at the head of the field, are into the stage. We have got lights bouncing around in the fog here in Kielder, and we're about to have the bark of rally cars into view. This is the 4th stage of the day. It is Kershup. Look at that. Tim Rogers, Stefan Arndt lead the way by 1 minute and 7 seconds coming into the 3rd stage. We'll give you an update on that when we can. Alan Carmichael had a steady start in that Wren Kitchens sponsored Hyundai i20 Rally 2. Jane Nicol alongside. They effectively swept the way in the snow earlier. They currently lie in 3rd place overall on the results I have, but I believe we should have some results now through, from the 2nd Ash Park. Now, these results are going to be difficult to summarise for you until we get some more of the cars through, given that our rally leader is running further down the order in the Fiesta ST, Tim Rogers, Stefan Arndt. So the 4-wheel drive cars through at the moment. It doesn't give us a full picture. Results.djames.org.uk is where you need to be. Alan Carmichael, quickest through that stage in Ash Park. So starting to get back to grips with things quite literally. John Bannister. Who on your entry list runs right down at the end of the 4-wheel drives, but is 2nd on the road with Emma Clark alongside. Interestingly, look at this. John's first ever rally was the 1981 Lombard RAC Rally. John Robinson sitting alongside him. Now, if you know John Robinson, you'll know he sat alongside not only Steve Bannister as well, but also Roger Clark. So that's one heck of a story for your first rally, isn't it? The Lombard RAC Rally, the 81 Lombard RAC Rally, which is the last rally that Tom Bradley did. In that Mini as well that we've got on the entry this weekend. Some fabulous stories here on the Anglo Caledonian Rally. John McClory. We have lost Alfie Hammond, Darren Martin, both of those ending their rally in a ditch in the 1st stage this morning. And you will, if you tuned in earlier, have seen just how treacherous those conditions were, particularly through the Kershup stage, but the same was true in Ash Park as well. The organisers have been working hard all day, in fact over the last couple of days as well, having cancelled 2 stages first thing this morning. They put the full stage schedule back together again, but we have lost the 2 at the end of the day now, which is frankly understandable given the challenges they are facing. Very difficult to pick out the numbers here. That was Bart-Jan Dienik. The Mitsubishi Evo 10. Saw a slight dropout on the Starlink there, but we are back online, and we will be right through this entry. Admittedly, we're bringing you atmosphere, and pretty much atmosphere only in the dark here, but we will, when we get them through, bring you results that tell the story of where we are so far. It will be interesting to see where Tim Rogers' times sit. The stage is not as icy as we perhaps expected them to be, given earlier conditions, but they're still far from easy for our competitors. Alex Vassallo, who was 7th fastest through the second running of Ash Park just prior to this stage. Harry Walshaw alongside, former Motorsport UK Academy co-driver earlier this year, having some epic adventures as well on that programme, and getting himself into all manner of seats on the co-driver's side of the car. One of the upcoming names in the sport, one of our young stars. Alex was out in the Moulton Forest rally as a bit of a test for this Anglo Caledonian rally, but it was a mechanical failure which ended their day early. I think it was power steering, wasn't it? In that beautiful sounding Citroen DS3 R5. Now I think we're going to have a gap before the first of the two-wheel drive come through, but it shouldn't be that long. The organisers did pull that gap closer in. Seb Perez with Dale Bowen alongside, having just won the British Historic Rally Championship. It was announced coming into this rally that Mark Higgins had a shoulder injury and wouldn't be competing here and contesting that title fight here at the final round. Leaving the Amigos tequila beer sponsored Porsche team, complete with its no farmers, no food strapline. Of course, close to, well, all of our hearts, but particularly Steve Perez, who was speaking at that demonstration in London with Jeremy Clarkson last week. Those words, important words, adorn the British Historic Rally Championship winning Porsche this year. It was either going to be a Porsche 911 or a Works spec Triumph TR7 winning the BHRC that year. And when I said at the beginning of 2024 that this was going to be the year of the rally car, I wasn't wrong, was I? Don't get me wrong, those trusty escorts gave the German machine and the British Leyland thumping muscle car a run for their money, but it is a Porsche on top, just as it was in the 2019 Roger Albert Clark rally. A rally which, of course, we have to thank for this Anglo-Caledonian event. Indeed, a number of crews, just like with the RAC, coming back out of retirement. We've got crews that haven't done events for 30 years coming out this weekend. And we've got a number of crews who save their rallying for either the Roger Albert Clark or, indeed now, the Anglo-Caledonian. So that has led to a very varied entry list. Everything from X-Works Saab 900 turbos to Datsun Triple S 1600s, two-stroke Saabs, and a whole lot more besides. Some wonderful machines taking on this year's Anglo-Caledonian Rally. And then we get a new crop of competitors as well for tomorrow's Scottish leg, when the Scottish Rally Championship hosts its final round here in the stages of southern Scotland on day 2 of the Anglo-Caledonian, which will add further intrigue, I'm sure, to the entry list. Alan Carmichael still quickest. Okay, so apparently Seb Perez has been given a wrong time. But there are the sparks on the front brakes of that championship-winning Porsche 911. Showing just how hard he's been pushing through here, and showing as well that now the conditions are starting to clear a little bit, in that the snow that we saw earlier isn't such an issue. Our crews can start to push on, and this is where we'll see some further intrigue as well, as far as the leaderboard is concerned, for Tim Rogers and Stefan Arndt to have been leading the way in that Fiesta ST. 8 years since they've been in a car, by 1 minute and 7 seconds after 2 stages today, is a remarkable performance, and whatever happens from here, one that they will, I'm sure, be talking about, dining out on for a long time, and so they should. A formidable performance, and in conditions that absolutely suit Tim Rogers down to the ground. I've sat alongside that man, and he is quick. He knows how to hustle a car around a stage. He also knows how to prepare a car. So without giving him presenter's curse, fully expect that Tim Rogers will be driving a reliable car this weekend. You can correct me if you're watching the screen and you can see better than me, but I think that may have been Matthew Robinson, Sam Collis alongside. Very difficult to make out in the dark here. One of the curses of doing this job on a night stage, albeit the atmosphere is at its max, of course. So Seb Perez had a wrong stage time on stage 2, apparently. So far, he's second quickest through the 3rd stage, Ash Park. At the moment, then, okay, Tim Rogers lost a fair amount of time, but I would say probably back to where he would have expected to be as the conditions get back to something like normal. Took a 17th fastest stage time through that one, leaving him in 2nd place. Alan Carmichael, Jane Nicol, just nipping into the lead of the event after Ash Park. 36 seconds, the gap. It's a further 24 seconds back to Paul Thompson in 3rd place. Then Matthew Robinson, Matthew Stroud, Rudy Lancaster, David Henderson, Brian Jardine, Alex Vassallo, and Bart Jandinik, who we saw through in the Evo 10, round out the top 10. A top 10 which has no less than 2 pairs of equal times. Rudy Lancaster and David Henderson equals 6th, Brian Jardine, Alex Vassallo equal 8th. For the top 10, which is dominated by BHRC crews. And if you were tuning in now and just looking at that top 10 leaderboard, you see Kevin Rogers and Stefan Arndt there in 2nd place, just 36 seconds behind the Rally 2 Hyundai i20 of Alan Carmichael and Jane Nicol, and you would think, what on earth happened earlier? Snow and ice, as we know, can be one heck of a leveler. And they were certainly that here on these Killer Kielder stages today on day 1 of the Anglo Caledonian. Welcome if you've just tuned in. I need a Mark 1 or a Toyota Corolla to pick out so I can tell you where we are in the running order. The crew's running slightly out of order, certainly from the entry list, but I think that was Steve Bannister. I think. Back in Ethel after a full rebuild. Famous car, famous driver. Was privileged to join Steve and a whole host of other star drivers and co-drivers for the launch of Jonathan Pullen's new book, Forgotten Rally Photos. Just a week ago yesterday in Malton. What a night that was. What a humble bloke Steve Bannister is, given all that he has achieved. Bob Bean as well, among the crop of stars that we had with us for the Q&A to launch that book. Great to see Bob and John Laley and a whole host of others, but nice to see Steve back out in Ethel in that Mark II. May not have been Steve I was talking about. After all, that could have been anybody. It was an escort in the dark with spotlights blinding me here in this Kirshop stage. Don't forget, if you have got involved with our coverage this weekend so far, or you do get involved, you go in a draw to win one of our Rallying is Life Lombard RAC Rally inspired t-shirts. We're only giving them away, you can't buy them. Now that shape I can pick out anywhere. That was Andy Davison and Tom Murphy in the Sunbeam VXR, our BTRDA Silver Star champions. Last saw them on the Cambrian, where they took first place in the Silver Star roster in North Wales. From one set of iconic stages to another, a very different challenge this weekend. Was that Brian Jardine? Declan Campbell, I think, in the RS 1600. You can feel my pain, can't you? I think that would have been Brian Jardine. It was a, I could just about pick out that it was a red Mark I anyway. And that's Matthew Stroud. Steady start. And has gone well as Matthew so far. 4th overall coming into this stage. 12 seconds off Paul Thompson in 3rd. 1:12 off Alan Carmichael's lead. And to remind you, Tim Kirvan-Rogers, he's just 36 seconds back in the Fiesta ST Trophy car, putting a time in through the 3rd stage that probably is about where you would expect a Fiesta ST Trophy car to be. But managed to sweep his way through the snow and the ice earlier in the first 2 stages to, well, whatever happens from here, tell us a story that we'll all be talking about for some time. It's a sight and a half, isn't it? A rally car, spot lamps ablaze, coming through the misty forest. Ken Sturdy, I believe. Glyn Thomas alongside. Had a good stage through Ash Park. He was 11th fastest through the 3rd stage. Getting on song now. 13th on the leaderboard at the moment. Just 3 seconds behind our Silver Star champion Andy Davison. Ken in the historic Spec Escort. He was in a car that would go very well in the Silver Star last weekend at Cadwell Park in the ex-Baz Jordan Avenger. But this weekend, it's historic honours for Ken Sturdy from Hull, with his company Spectrum IT emblazoned on the side of that white car prep Mark II. Should have Phil Squires through next. Just picking his way through. 19th overall coming into this 4th stage here in Kirshop. Set the 20th fastest time through Ash Park last time out as well before coming here. Chris Squires just a second quicker through that stage. And Ian Beveridge has been going exceedingly well in the little Toyota TE27 Corolla, taking 18th fastest time. Just 2 behind our earlier rally leaders, Tim Rogers and Stefan Arndt. Tony Thompson, who is very much in contention for that lead fight. Remember, results.djames.org.uk is where you need to be if you want to follow the live results yourself. I will do my best to tell you the story as we get the stage times loaded in from this 4th stage of the day. Steve Maxson, Kevin Barden, nice little bit of sideways here. I tell you what, you don't want to be getting it too sideways on this 90 left, because one, you've got to get the car straightened up for the bridge where you can just see the cars picking it out as they go out of your shot. And it is a narrow bridge with signs to tell the competitors and warn them of just how narrow that is. It's of course cautioned in the notes, but on the outside is one heck of a drop down to the back garden of a farmyard. A farm cottage. Very deceptive here in the dark. That was Barry Lindsay, wasn't it? Interesting to have him running so far. Out of order. Okay, so Dylan Fowler Bishop, Charlie Tuthill, John McGlory, Glenn Davies, Darren Martin, Alfie Hammond and Paul Walker all retiring in the first 3 stages, the majority of those in the first stage of the day. I think that may have been Neil James, but I am at this point guessing a little bit. And that was our 2022 D3 champion in the BHRC, Stephen James alongside. It becomes perhaps slightly easier to pick out the cars once we get some of the variety through. Was that Derek Belbin, I wonder? I think it may have been the unarched Mark 1 that we last saw on the Manx when I think it was his head gasket. Failed, didn't it? Signalling game over. Seemed to be getting to grips with things, if you want to call it that, earlier on in the first couple of stages. Certainly set a 13th fastest time through Ash Park just before this stage, leaving him 9th overall. I think you'd take that at this stage, wouldn't you? I think that was Chris Squires who set a time just inside the top 20 overall through Ash Park, just behind the little Corolla of Ian Beveridge. Seemed to have lost Alex Waterman from the order. Doesn't mean anything, could be running slightly out of road position from the reseeded running order that we got from the organisers earlier today, following the reformatting of the event after the pressure from the authorities to can the first 2 stages last night. No results through yet from this Kershup stage. As soon as we get them through, I will let you know. But to remind you of the current leaderboard, Alan Carmichael, Jane Nichol, who struggled, or should we say struggled, or should we say played the long game and just took things steady through the first couple of stages, are now back in the lead, 36 seconds of a lead to Tim Curvin-Rogers and Stefan Arndt. Paul Thompson 3rd, Matthew Stroud 4th, Matthew Robinson 5th, David Henderson 6th, Walter Henderson 7th, Rudy Lancaster, Derek Belbin, Andrew Madge currently round off the classification, and there is Alex Waterman, who I mentioned a little earlier, set a 27th overall fastest time. It was the 2nd fastest time through Class C2 in the little Datsun SSS 1600. Yeah. 28th overall, and running 2nd in the class as well. Alex in that fabulous little Datsun. There's some really nice little period touches to the car. It's one of those cars that you're very excited to see out. It's always nice to see something different. But we are blessed as well, aren't we, here in the UK with some very quick escort drivers, and that's never a bad sight either. The rain just starting to come down now back here in Kielder, which will make things once again treacherous. You can feel and hear just how gingerly the competitors are coming around this 90 left. It is exceptionally slippery, and there is a big drop at the other side of it. You don't want to be on the wrong side of that. Still waiting for the times from this Kershup stage. But there is the man who has been supremely impressive and quite dominant in those atrocious conditions to start today. Tim Curvin-Rogers, Stefan Arndt in the car that Becky Curvin-Rogers, Tim's other half, did the BRC in 8 years ago. Tim last did a rally in that car. It smells a bit oily, I've got to say. It's hanging around from the Escort before it, but it does smell. There's definitely a whiff of oil in the air, isn't there, Sam? Sam Leonard on camera duty with me here. We've got Phil Bramwell out with a second camera, which you can't see, but you'll see in the programme we put out afterwards, telling the full story of this year's Anglo-Caledonian, the inaugural Anglo-Caledonian Rally. Producer Wayne on studio duties. We're on a bit of a skeleton crew this weekend. And there is the TE27 Corolla, which is going so well. Ian Beveridge leading that C2 class. That also has Alex Waterman in it. It's a fair old lead in the class as well. From 24th on the overall leaderboard. The 18th fastest time for Ian Beveridge, interestingly. Just 2 seconds slower through Ash Park than Tim Curvin-Rogers. We'll be seeing some results from stage 4 that we're looking at now, coming through before long, so I can update you on where we are. Seb Perez, who did have the wrong time, we're told, for stage 2, set the second fastest time through the third stage, so he's coming on strong as well. Now I actually think, although I called it earlier, I think that was Derek Belbin, wasn't it? A few of the crews just running slightly out of order. We'll see in here that wonderful X-Works Saab 900 Turbo through soon as well. Colin Hope has managed to track down and bring that glorious car out. 3 of them were made for the 97 season for Saab's Works Swan Song. Per Eklund leading the charge on the Network Q RAC Rally in the exact same livery that we see here this weekend. We've got the first few times through yet from stage 4. We haven't. To remind you, Dylan Fowler-Bishop, Charlie Tuthill, Glenn Davies, Darren Martin, Alfie Hammond, all retiring in the very first stage today. Paul Walker, John McGlory adding themselves to the retirements list. And the Ash Park stage just before this one. The stage is running long into the night tonight, although we have lost the final 2 stages. The organisers doing a mammoth job of making difficult calls at the right time. No mean feat. The weather throwing a real curveball this morning. Storm Bert was coming. We knew it was coming. We didn't quite know how bad it would affect us. And there was a point when we were driving into the Kirshop stage earlier today that we wondered if it would run at all. They were struggling to get marshals and rescue crews in. At one point it was 4-wheel drive vehicles only to enter the stage. It was all looking a little hairy. Communications coming from the organisers, though, were brilliant, timely and efficient. And eventually everybody got to where they needed to be, albeit as a TV crew, we are also double up as marshals, and we had to sign on as such today, just to make sure that they were fully covered and had the numbers. But fair play to all of the marshals and the volunteers who are stood out in, well, utterly horrifying conditions for anyone to be stood outside. And it looks great, I'm sure, on the TV. Rally cars and picture postcards, snowy forests always look wonderful. But there are an awful amount of people stood out enduring this weather. And we salute every single one of you. The rain coming down now, that is going to make things exceptionally tricky once again on this already icy surface. The rain is the last thing any of these drivers will want on top of, in places, what is compacted ice and slush. It is going to be a long night with 2 more stages to go. It is the second running of the Buckfell and Gowanburn stages that have copped for it, I'm afraid. The timings as they are. There was a road traffic collision as well, the entrance to the Ash Park stage, causing a road closure before the start of these 2 stages, which make things difficult for the organisers. But again, communications via Sportity, very impressive. And it does give you some hope that, regardless of what the weather or various other circumstances may throw at the organisers tomorrow for the second day and the Scottish leg of the Anglo Caledonian Rally, indeed the final round of the Scottish Rally Championship, that we will get to see plenty of action. We'll be live with you from the 2 Twigley stages tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Andy Madge, who's been going really well, actually, was seemingly very comfortable earlier in the very snowy conditions. 27th, equal 27th fastest through stage 3 with Alex Waterman in the Datsun 1600, the Corolla AE86 with its 4 AGE engine. Was renowned for being what many thought to be Japan's reboot of the Escort. A very similar engine to the BDA and a very similar car format as well, which has made them sought after. And they make fantastic rally cars, and as always with these things, once the road rally fraternity lock their sights on, the cars go up in value and they disappear. We don't have that many of them out anymore, but Andy Madge has been doing a good job in that Corolla today in very tricky conditions. Second of the Porsches there. The first of them, of course, being the championship winning Porsche. The second seemingly going quite well himself, James Brady, Jack Brady alongside. Won his class on the Track Rod Historic Cup. Not bad preparation for the Anglo Caledonian, was it? The Porsche, suddenly one of the cars to have in British historic rallying. And the rain is coming down pretty torrentially now. Still no times. Oh, there we go. The first few times are through then. Paul Thompson. Haven't got the 4-wheel drive times through just yet, but Paul Thompson showing us fastest through this stage. Matthew Robinson taking the second fastest stage time. 1 minute and 10 behind. Matthew hopping into that brand new, very glorious Rothmans-esque liveried Mark II. His old one resembled the Cossack car, of course. When we first saw him in that new car, it was the Kielder Forest stages, wasn't it? Just trying to figure out a plan of action with Sam, cameraman, because we are stood in absolutely freezing conditions with the rain coming down very hard now. We didn't quite anticipate rain. We didn't have any rain on the forecast for this evening's stage, so just forgive a little bit of radio silence there. So the first time's coming through then. There we go. Alan Carmichael, fastest through the stage. Paul Thompson, Matthew Robinson, and David Henderson, who has a strange move, you know, winning rallies overall in a Rally 2 Fiesta, wanted to try something different, and he got hold of this historic Mark 2. It could have gone either way, but it seems to be going pretty well because he put in a 4th fastest stage time ahead of Rudy Lancaster. You wouldn't mind being a few seconds ahead of Rudy Lancaster, would you? I certainly wouldn't. 22 seconds ahead, in fact, through this stage. Eddie Lewis, another man switching from a Rally 2 Fiesta to a Mark 2. The young man who had a rough start at Rally North Wales with reliability issues, but seemingly back on song. Strung together a fairly successful season following that. He took 6th fastest through here. Ken Sturdy, Brian Jardine, Andy Davison, 9th fastest time, and then Alex Vassallo in the DS3 R5, rounding out the top 10 stage times through this second running of the Kirshop stage, stage 4, on day 1 of the Anglo Caledonian. There is that beautiful Saab 900 Turbo of Colin Hope. Last saw him in the V4 Saab, didn't we, in the Saab 96. Rallied some cars in his time as Colin. As I mentioned earlier, I got very excited when I saw that 900 Turbo at scrutineering last night. Just waiting for Tim Rogers' time to drop in. That is of some interest following his performances earlier on today. A 17th fastest stage time through 3 meant he did drop down. There's Charles Nifton, Stephen Gozzard alongside. Last saw them in the Roger Albert Clock in November, didn't we, in the 205 GTI, the 1600. They didn't get to the end of the Roger Albert Clock, but they probably feel like they've done a whole rally so far today with just the 4th stage of the day underway, given how treacherous the conditions are and how much effort must be going into getting these cars through the stage. Just getting to the end of today is going to be some achievement. There's that lovely Alfa Romeo. Giulietta. I wanted to call it an Alfa 75 when I first saw it in the RAC last year, but it's not, is it? It's a Giulietta. Every bit of me wants to refer to it as an Alfa 75. I think that was Phil Morton, wasn't it, in the Datsun there? Again, so difficult to pick out, but I'm pretty sure that was. Indeed, Phil Morton in the Datsun, who did that test prior to the Anglo Caledonian, was really throwing the thing around in less than ideal conditions, a bit like he's been doing today. Entertained us all with his Mitsubishi Starion at the Roger Albert Clark Rally in November. Remember the one that steered itself? Yeah, he just hung on for dear life. We'll see the Starion back out at some point, I'm led to believe. Speaking to Phil at the Pro Tyre Motorsport UK Asphalt Rally Championship Awards a few weeks ago, where of course he was there to see his son Jack Mawson pick up for the 3rd time the co-driver's title overall, alongside Callum Black, who made it 2 titles in the series in the Rally 2 Fiesta. What will we see him in next year? I do understand the Golf kit car is on the cards, or at least in build. It'll be interesting. The rain just easing off here a little bit, leaving us absolutely nithered. Is that right, Sam? That probably about sums it up, doesn't it? I don't think I've ever been as cold as I have today. I said earlier, I have parts of me that I once dearly loved, and I don't know if are still attached. Looking forward to getting in a warm van. Still a bit of action to go on the stage first. Still a bit of variety as well. Tom Bradley in the little mini 1275 GT that I filmed prior to this, with his fantastic story of coming back. The last time being the 1981 Lombard RAC Rally. He did a Rally Antibes in 1986 in the car. The last year of homologation, and was due to do the RAC in 86 until they were told that they couldn't do it. They were running at the head of the field. There's a bit of a, was it a demonstration? I'll have to revisit the video. Certainly it was the last year of homologation for the Mini, and they were due to rally, and for whatever reason they couldn't compete. And he was bitterly disappointed. We also have the Jaguar XJS still to come of Ed Abbott, former test engineer for Jaguar, test drove those cars when they were new. And he was a young man, and he, along with Tom, is one of the oldest competitors on the entry, and still knows how to throw a rally car around. This rally was the inspiration behind him re-preparing that Jaguar XJS, that V12 engined British muscle car, to come out stage rally. He wanted to do the Anglo Caledonian. He saw the RAC last year and he thought, you know what, you only live once. I'm going to re-prep the car for stage rallies, and we're going to do it. And fair play. Sounds like a bit of a misfire on that 206 Cup car, doesn't there? Stephen Knott, Mark Hammonds, who haven't been going badly themselves today. Tim Rogers should have his time through now, so let's revisit the stage times. Love to see that, don't you? The Morris Marina 1300 Coupe. Rob Evett, we last saw it on the Roger Albert Clark in its Unipark colours. Really the car that kick-started BL's rally successes. Without that car and John Davenport's tenacity, we arguably wouldn't have had, almost certainly wouldn't have had, the TR7 V8, even the Metro 6R4, the Rover SD1, keep naming them, they're all in the story. And there's the absolutely lovely, complete with new engine, Mark II Astra of David Comley and David Lee. You see, it's a little easier to pick the cars out in the dark when they're different shapes, isn't it? You know where I'm coming from, and I'm sure you feel my pain. I just wish I could share some of this cold with you, because I've got far too much of it. When the rain eases off, though, and the lights just shine on the surface, it is looking more and more like a normal, wet, muddy gravel rally stage. Certainly a world of difference from this morning. There's snow still by the side of the stage and in pockets, I'm sure. But right now, Kielder looking a fair bit more inviting for those gravel tyres. But it made for some good entertainment earlier, didn't it? Wow, did it? So 75.78, the original mileage from today. We are losing Galburn and Buckfell, so what's that? It's about 21. Just under 22 miles. Still 55.5 mile day today. So from here, this cruiser straight into, it's a 12.2 mile stage this. The cruiser then straight into the first of the Buckfell stages. It's a 10.72 mile stage that. They go into service at Greenside, and then it's up to Gowerburn, and that will round things off for the day. 6 stages today from the original 8 intended, which is kind of where we were going into today, wasn't it? With the first 2 stages cancelled, we've just kind of switched around and cancelled the last 2 instead. But I have to say again, and I will keep saying it through the weekend, a remarkably good job done by the organisers to both make tough decisions at the right time, I think, and also communicate them. I don't think we could level any communication issues to the organisers today. They do a difficult job at the best of times, and these have not been the best of times to be a rally organiser. Very impressive, guys. They're quite well practiced at it, you might say. And that is Charlie Tuthill, who did retire, and seemingly he's super rallying then in the MG ZR. That's good news. I don't know what the issue was. I saw the car looking splendid at scrutineering in the pictures I saw from Ben Lawrence. Who, by the way, has his rally calendar out. It's that time of year, isn't it? The British Rally Media calendar's out. Ben Lawrence has got his calendar out. It's the time of the year when we all adorn our walls with photos that tell us just how good we've had it this year in British rallying. 2024, the year of the rally car, I said. The rise of Group A. And a brilliant year if you're into variety on entry lists, like I am. It feels like we've got a bit of a renaissance. Fantastic feeder series, such as the Mini Rally Challenge, giving an R50 class for the juniors to step into and an R53 class for intense competition and friendly rally community. It doesn't feel like we've ever had it this good for a long time in rallying, as far as I'm concerned. And then the calendars being announced for next year's BTRDA, Ashfelt and BRC. It all looks very rosy. The British Historic Rally Championship has a Porsche at the top of its roster. It had a battle for the title between a Porsche and a Triumph TR7 V8. You see where I'm going, right? 2024 was and is the year of the rally car. It's fitting that for many this will be a final swan song for their season. Still a few rallies to go, and then it's awards season. So the Scottish Rally Championship competitors join us for 57 miles. Scottish stages tomorrow. Castle Ower, Twigleys, Windy Hill and A Forest, providing the backdrop to the final round, the championship of which has already been decided, much like the BHRC. And there's a lovely, yet perhaps slightly poorly sounding Saab 99 Turbo. Doesn't sound like it's completely on song, and he hasn't had a clean run since 2016, which was in his Saab 96. Gavin Chisholm Russell Fair, who will be really hoping to get through. They didn't finish the Galloway Hills Rally recently. I say recently, it was 2023, wasn't it? We last saw them out in that car, so fingers crossed. We do see a Saab 99 Turbo, as well as a 900 Turbo, at the finish tomorrow. Oh no, the 900 isn't a turbo, is it? I will correct myself on that one. The Group A. There is Ed Abbott, the fabulous looking and sounding Jaguar XJS. The motoring public didn't know what had hit them when Jaguar brought that out to replace the gorgeous E-Type, but it has gained a following all of its own since then. The rain still is very difficult to pick out escorts. It is absolutely pitch black here. The rain's still trying to come down, and it will make tomorrow's stages, if the weather is anything like this further up the road in Scotland, brutal again. I guess you could say our crews knew what they could potentially be getting coming here at this time of year, but I don't think anybody quite anticipated it being as tricky as this. A little Suzuki Swift then of Philip Boothroyd and Martin Dransfield. Did the Trackrod Forest stages as a bit of a warm-up for the Anglo Caledonian, if you will. They were second in the B10 class. In fact, that was the only other event they did this season. Last rally before that was in a Mark 1 Escort in 1993. Just let that hover in the air a little. David Clucky, Damien Bird, just picking their way through this fourth stage of the day. When you look at the leaderboard, and I will remind you about it in a minute and where we currently stand, it's interesting when you look at what happened earlier compared to now, and you look at the approaches being taken. We saw drivers in very capable cars just taking things ever so steady because they knew ultimately that their time would come once the stages started to settle down. Tim Rogers opened the day with a 1:07 lead after two stages. He's now down in 5th place, still a remarkable position to be in going into the final two stages of the day. Make no mistake about that. I take nothing away from that performance that we've seen from Tim in the Fiesta so far today, but you know, he will be the first to say, yep, the conditions were a really good leveller. So Alan Carmichael leads the way at the moment. Paul Thompson behind. And if my fingers will work on the results screen, Matthew Stroud is then followed by Matthew Robinson. Then it's Tim Curvin-Rogers, who has a 10-second buffer at the moment to David Henderson. Walter Henderson behind him, Rudy Lancaster, Andrew Madge. Told you Andy was going well in that Toyota Corolla in 9th. And then Derek Belbin, having suffered a head gasket failure on the Manx, determined to put in a strong result here to finish his season at the Anglo Caledonian, and so far is doing just that. No Thomas Bradley in the Mini at this stage, which is bad news. Very bad news indeed. I hope whatever's happened there, we do get to see that Mini back on the stages very soon, but for now that does round out the cars on the stage here. Steve Graham in the Lancia, quite a fitting car to round us out, I suppose, but it would be nice to see that Mini out again wherever he's gone. Tom Bradley, we wish you well. Hope you're going to join us back on the stages tomorrow if we're not going to see you tonight. I do think that is it. Thank you for joining us today. I know that rallying in the dark, oh no, I spoke too soon. We do have a couple more. I'm just looking at the tracker. We do have a few more cars at the start arrival, so we will just hang fire there, actually. And just time to remind you, of course, that we do have those Rallying is Life t-shirts to give away. All you've got to do is get involved in our streams. Apologies that I haven't. We'll just hang fire because the tracker is showing cars at the start of the stage, but it could be trackers being collected or cars being collected, of course, at that point. So we'll just hang fire for just a moment, and I will just join you very briefly on the comments. But no, I think that is it for action on the stage for this fourth stage of the day. 2 more stages left tonight then. The snow and the ice were certainly levelers as we went into today, and the leaderboard looks very different to what it did this morning. We kind of expected that, didn't we? What a performance from Tim Rogers so far. Alan Carmichael back in the lead of the event, where presumably he would expect to be at this stage. 2 more left, and we will see you tomorrow morning for more live coverage from the stages in Scotland for the Twigley stages. Stay tuned to the Anglo Caledonian Facebook page tonight for further updates and, of course, an overnight leaderboard. We will see you in the morning. It's time to go and get warmed up.